Welcome ladies and gentlemen, it's Iceblade here with another YouTube video. Today we're dealing with racking of your beer. Now racking for different brewers means different things. For me it's when you move your beer from one vessel to another. Now that can be any other vessel, like also when I'm bottling my beer, I'm also moving it from a vessel to the beer bottle, which is another vessel, so that also counts as racking of beer. So, but in my case, what I normally do is I have a fermentation vessel and then I rack it over to a bottling vessel. So it's actually doing two things at the same time, whereas like this bucket has no tap on it, so I ferment in this bucket. The bottling bucket is exactly like this, exactly look the same. They're brothers from the same mother, and but that one has the tap for bottling on. So when I move it to there, it's for the purpose of bottling, but I don't bottle immediately. So this fermentation vessel stays in the fermentation chamber or where it can be heat controlled. And then when it's finished, this is now finished beer, then I take it out of that heat controlled environment and I rack it to the bottling bucket, but I still leave it for like 7 days. So in that process the beer will clear out further. The yeast that was still in suspension, although it's a finished beer, I took the gravity 3 days in a row, it's the same, so it's supposed to be finished, but there's always some particles in suspension. So in that week it will now settle out and you will also get some sediment at the bottom. And also it's being moved out of the heat or the temperature control environment, and now I place it outside. Currently, as you can see, wearing jacket, it is cold, so it's in a sense slight cold crashing also, but it will stay outside in normal room temperature, which is cold now, and that will also force the particles to settle down to the bottom. So my beer essentially clears out, and it's also now in the vessel that I can bottle, and I can bottle directly from that after a week or so. So that is what came up in the forums as well, where people were asking, why do brewers brew twice? Why do they brew the same batch twice? It's not that we're brewing it twice. It's, like I said, this one is finished. Gravity is stable over 3 days. It has finished its fermenting process. The yeast has done its job. It has made the ethanol. It has made CO2 and all its flavor byproducts. It's finished. So I'm not going to brew it again. It's now just going to settle out. I'm going to get a clearer beer, and it's going to be in a vessel where I can bottle from. Now the question came up then why don't you just start the brewing process already in the bucket that you're bottling from? And you can probably do that. I mean, in the beginning I actually did that, but this is a process that I find works for me. It really delivers clearer beer. So I always ferment in a bucket that doesn't have any taps or anything that I can bottle from, or you can still bottle with a siphon or stuff like that. But I mean, that is my process now. I ferment in this bucket, I will move it to a bottling bucket, and then I will also use that bottling bucket for some conditioning basically, so that the beer will clear out. So it's not we're fermenting it twice. If fermenting will start again in that bucket by some miracle, then it's great. Then I would give it that week, also measure the gravity and see when it stops. So it's a safe way of not that it was a stuck fermentation, and now that the moving and stuff reactivates something, and then you were bottling it, and then in the bottle with the new sugars and the yeast now has more food, and then you get potential bottle bombs. So this is a safety, it's clearing the beer, it is a good process to put in your brewing repertoire, if you can put it like that. So it is racking of beer, and let's get to it. Okay, so let's look at equipment you would need to do racking from one vessel to another vessel. I did a video on bottling, so that would cover the racking from bottling bucket to bottles. Now, it should not be a complicated process or a dangerous process. So what most brewers do is you have one vessel higher than the other vessel, and then basically you just let Newton's gravity law take the liquid through a pipe to the other vessel. Now it could be easy. This is a nice thicker food grade tube. This is awesome for racking. So basically you would put this pipe as deep as you can into your fermenting bucket, and then at the bottom you'll just create some suction so you can suck on it. I have learned that if you have friends that help you with racking and you ask them to suck on it, remember, as soon as you start sucking and the liquid starts flowing, because it's lower, gravity will take over and you don't have to suck until there's liquid in your mouth. Now this is where I learned that if you ask friends to do this, you would not rack. You will rack from a vessel to their stomach basically, because they will suck and no, I'm not having anything, and then they will actually drink your beer. So no, you don't need to suck that liquid till it touches your mouth, or you don't have to touch your mouth actually. What I have learned is that if you just put a little bit of sanitizing liquid in this tube, not a lot, just say from there to there, and you keep your thumb on it, but you keep it at the bottom, and you put this hose in your liquid and you release that into a bucket or something, but not your vessel you want to bucket into. You just release that liquid into a spare bucket, and as soon as that liquid is finished, then you put the hose into your vessel you're racking into. That liquid that you released into the bucket will start a siphon, or would be like you sucking on it. The liquid will start the sucking process for you. You dump it into a spare bucket, you move your hose to the bucket you're racking into, and then that would have caused the siphon and pulled the liquid, and it will start flowing. I have actually done it racking from one vessel to a vessel at the same height. It's just slower, but as soon as the siphon starts and the liquid is exiting the tube, it can be at the same level. It will still flow, just slower. If it's higher and you're using gravity, it flows at tremendous pace. It just goes faster. So another one you could use is actually a siphon tube with a bit for the sediment. It's a sediment reducer. So this could be in the sediment. The rod, it's hard plastic, is actually not at the bottom, so it doesn't suck directly off the bottom, which is why it's called a sediment reducer. So it doesn't suck in the sediment, it sucks the liquid that's above the sediment. Now, depending on the size of your sediment, this would actually be nice, but if your sediment is bigger than that bit, you actually just have to lift it up a bit still. I use for the 5 liter or the 1 gallon carboys. This works excellent. It fits precisely into the 5 liter carboy, and it also has a clip for when bottling. But like I said in the bottling video, I show this as well. But you can rack with this. It works brilliantly for racking as well because of the bend and the hard plastic. And then my friend uses his bottling wand to rack as well. He has like taps on all his fermenting vessels, so he racks through the tap, through the bottling wand to another vessel. It's actually very easy to do with the bottling wand as well. And then I use the pump siphon. I just love these guys. This is the bigger one, so they work nice for your bigger batches, like your 25-liter batches. It's the same thing basically like the previous one I showed you. That part is the same, but now it's in the pump siphon. So you pump this, and then it pumps the liquid into this pipe, and it creates its own siphon. No suction, no bit of liquid in there to create a siphon. This creates a siphon for it, and it also has a sediment reducer at the bottom, but a bigger one, which is nicer for the bucket, so you never actually suck in the sediment at the rate that this is doing it. So it has worked out pretty nicely with gravity, but with this one you can actually pump equal services and still do some exercise while brewing. But for me, or what I'm going to do on video, is the one bucket is going to be higher than the other bucket, and that just pump to create a siphon, and then just leave this in the bucket. What I normally do is I use a long hose, like you can see, food grade one, and then I just twist it at the bottom of the new bucket, so it is like that. When it deposits the liquid, there's not a lot of aeration going on then, and that is a bad thing for beer at this stage. So we don't want to introduce air and any contaminants into your beer. So slowly is actually better. So just drop it at the bottom, pump it a bit, and let it flow naturally, and then you rack from one vessel to another. So this is the method I use. This is the method I would actually advise people to use, because you don't touch my hands are sanitized. This is sanitized, but you don't touch it with your mouth. You don't have to do the liquid trick to get a siphon going. You just pump it. You get smaller ones, actually. This is a big one, but you get a half-size one that does exactly the same, and it is cheaper, and it is very nice to use in brewing. So you don't have to buy this. Like I said, you can just use the hose. The hose is just attached to the hard plastic, so I can rack with that hose, or this is being spoiled actually. Pump siphon is being spoiled in homebrewing, so this is the way I use it. I would advise you to do this if you can. Otherwise, this works just as well. It's not needed to spend lots of money in home brewing. You can do decent brews. You can rather spend on more expensive ingredients and make a great beer than buy expensive equipment that just looks flashy. So one of my friends used to say there's things that you need in home brewing, and then there's things that you want in home brewing. So the need is this, the want is this. I wanted this, but I actually just needed this. So in all aspects of home brewing, you'll get that. So let's get to the racking. Let's get this puppy to its new home. Okay, so everything is sanitized, like I said. The new bucket was also sanitized. I just want to make a point there that the buckets with taps, leaving your liquid inside there to the recommendation of your sanitizer. Mine says 10 minutes of contact time. So leaving the bucket like that is brilliant, but with taps, and actually the infection was then between that washer and the bucket, or the washer and that nut. So actually you should unscrew it, get all the whole tap out, and lay the washers and that nut and the tap inside sanitizer for also the contact time your sanitizer says. Just a heads up, guys, that has happened, and that's why I basically do it. I take it apart and let the whole loose components get contact with sanitizer. Then it's easy to just reassemble it, and your beer is safer. It's not a hard process. Okay, so the bucket was closed with a lid that doesn't have airlock in, because I removed that to also wash it, and it's going to go on the new vessel now. So this was just to close it so that stuff don't get in there. You just put your siphon in there and you hold it close to the bucket. You actually do get a siphon clip. I have one. I'm just doing that snake twist at the bottom of that thing, holding this tight to the bucket. I will get the clip and just show you how it works. And then that thing pumps down, and already it's depositing liquid. Liquid is running through, the line is smooth, and this thing will now rack the beer for you. The siphon clip that I have is just so that I don't have to stand here and watch the process. I can just clip that on, put on the bucket lid so that nothing gets in there, and check this one. But for me personally, I don't mind checking what's going on here and what's happening there, so that no freak of nature runs in here and knocks my hose and we have beer going everywhere. So, but there is the option, if you want to sit back, lubricate the brewer and check the process, you can do that. Those clips are cheap. While you're racking like this, a good tip, or we can go pro tip, is actually to have that clip in there and not move the bottom of the, if you're using a pipe or you're using the pump siphon or just a normal siphon, to not wiggle it or move it so that you don't disturb the yeast cake or the trub at the bottom of your fermenting vessel, so that it, because this is now sucking slowly, but it's sucking, so any disturbance of the trub at the bottom will then also be sucked up by your siphon. Okay, so we hit the bottom of our fermenting bucket. Can see some of the yeast looking good. I will also reclaim this yeast, so I'll try and make a video of that. This is the siphon clip I was talking about. It just goes over your siphon like that. It's very tight, and then it has a clip that goes over the bucket, and then it holds this thing in place, and you sort it. Also, now would be a great time to take your final gravity reading, because if anything happens during your crashing or your clearing or this period that you're leaving it in your secondary fermenter now, that you know if something restarted. I did some, as you can see, that is very light. Looks like 108. So that's not too bad for IPA. That has been constant like that for 3 days now, so I'll be checking it before I bottle. If it's still the same as that, then I know nothing happened. I will also be checking on the airlock, but it should actually be nice and quiet and sleeping here. It's going to be in the colder temperatures now. It's still at 20, and I think our temp is currently at like 16 or 17, so it's still hot from the chamber. It will come down, and then anything that we might have gotten with the transfer or the racking process will also now settle down to the bottom of this vessel, and then we can bottle from this vessel. So I think that is all for the racking. If there's any questions that you would like around this process, or things that you might want to use, or problems that you encountered, please pop them down in the comments down below, and I'll get around to answering them. And if I can't answer them, I'll get some of my brewmaster buddies to assist me, to assist you. So, but we'll get an answer to you. So this is actually a very easy process, but things can go so horribly wrong in this process if you do not sanitize, if you do not take proper care, like not having your hair in your brew or leaving it open too long and getting it contaminated. So if you can't keep this a sanitized process, then I would not suggest that you actually wrap to a secondary fermenting vessel. So then just go straight into bottling. That is safer for your brew. But if you can do this process, be sanitary about it, and at least have some sort of like a food grade hose or something, then you can go for it. It really does clear out the beer, and you get a nice crisper end result though. So any questions, like I said, go ahead. If you haven't yet, please do subscribe and hit the like if this assisted you in any way. Thanks guys.